Unwilling to allow the standoff with Kampfgruppe Eckel to persist, Captain Dorn of Company B has exercised command initiative in an effort to achieve his mission objective. During the last few minutes of combat, the Americans have finally succeeded in clearing the crown of Point Andy of the last German holdouts, due almost exclusively to the efforts of a single expert sniper. Ostensibly trivial, this episode has in reality paved the way for the most significant event of the battle thus far, that being the crossing of the field irrigation ditch that separates the combatants. With the threat of enemy counter-artillery fire also momentarily foiled, the Americans are now poised to capture the West Bluff and infiltrate the Vale floor. Believing from the outset that their own self-prescribed mission would be transitory at best, Lieutenant Eckel's military instincts are about to be confirmed. A discernible cloud of dust and the clatter of metal linkage now approaches from the northeast. The Battle of Albeit is about to evolve. The time is 10:56 hours. Recognizing that the irrigation ditch is now free from mortar attack, Dorn wastes no time in transferring the balance of the infantry atop Hill 146 to the Vale floor. His confidence is bolstered by the pending augmentation to his combat strength.
Our mortar teams did an outstanding job of scattering the German troops on Point Andy, as well as reducing their artillery capacity in Albeit. The time was right for 1st Platoon to get off their perch and join the assault. Foregoing the piecemeal approach, I ordered the platoon to descend the hill, en masse, and make for the recently vacated irrigation ditch. I came to the conclusion that moving the entire unit, in one fell swoop, offered them the best chance of survival, because it might catch the Germans off guard while they were focused on the intentions of 2nd Platoon. To my relief, they traversed the southern slope and arrived at the ditch without incident. The timing couldn't have been better. At that very same moment, reinforcements were arriving on scene near Point Amos. At the first sign of enemy armor, I radioed battalion with an emphatic request for help. They sent us a detachment of 5 Stuarts. These tanks were not the heavyweights that I was hoping for. However, I was glad to see them just the same.
The M5A1 is a 16-ton armored fighting vehicle nicknamed the Stuart, after Confederate Civil War General Jeb Stuart. It represents the final variant in the M3 series of light tanks, which were the very first U.S. Army tanks to engage the Wehrmacht in World War II. Lightly armored, the Stuart is the quickest and most nimble tank within the European theater. However, its combat effectiveness is severely tempered by an outdated low-velocity 37mm main gun. By this point in the war, its small-caliber cannon combined with its comparatively thin metal skin has relegated the tank to reconnaissance duty and infantry support missions. More M5A1 versions were produced than any other variant of the Stuart. 2nd Platoon, Company D of the 83rd Armored Cavalry Regiment has been tasked to aid in the mission. They are commanded by Lieutenant Richard Waters.
My platoon of Stuarts was bivouacked approximately 3 kilometers east of Albeit when we received orders to scramble. At first, I thought the communique was in error, because our destination was a battle site behind our own lines. Regimental headquarters directed us to assist a company of 1st Infantry. I was informed that we should expect to encounter German armor and that they would have us severely outgunned. In essence, we were to serve as little more than a neighborhood watch. Our mission was not to destroy the enemy armor but, more importantly, to prevent them from leaving the confines of the Vale, even if that meant sacrificing the entire platoon. An ominous directive if ever I heard one.
Upon arriving on site, the individual Stuarts promptly break convoy formation and ascend Point Amos. They initiate a battle line configuration that spans the entire ridge of the bluff and dominates the Vale's access road. The appearance of enemy armor does not escape the Germans in Albeit. Panic nearly sets in as each tank takes up a defilade or hold-down position along the crest of the hill. Almost immediately, the number 1 and number 2 Stuarts gain a line of sight on Lieutenant Spitzer's Stug. They leap forward in unison in an attempt to engage the German. Recognizing that he's on the verge of being attacked by multiple enemy tanks, Spitzer begins a hasty withdrawal. The first shell of the duel flashes past the Stug's superstructure, thereby prompting the commander to descend into his machine and button up for combat. His main gun loaded with an anti-personnel round, Spitzer quickly empties the breech to make room for an armor-piercing shell. Adversely affected by unstable vehicle motion, the high-explosive impacts point Amos well off its intended mark. Lieutenant Spitzer recalls the ensuing sequence of events.
Konfrontiert mit feindlichen Panzers befahl ich meiner Mannschaft.
Confronted with enemy tanks, I ordered my crew to seal the Stug and prepare for battle. Unfortunately, my situational awareness from inside the vehicle was dramatically reduced. I was so intent on putting distance between my vehicle and the American armor that I inadvertently backed us into the muddy fringes of the sunken vale. At that specific moment in time, however, I was more concerned with putting rounds on target than the threat of bogging down.
The increased range is indeed beneficial to the Germans. The accuracy and effectiveness of the short-barreled Stuarts is severely curtailed. On the other hand, Spitzer's high-velocity gun does not share the same deficiencies. Within moments, his first anti-tank round cuts through the transmission of the number 1 tank, immobilizing the vehicle, eliminating the driver, and stunning the crew. Refusing to back down, tank number 2 proceeds to trade shot with the Stug. Though both combatants hit their mark, the 37mm round merely ricochets off the Stug's glacis plate, while the 75mm shell penetrates the Stuart's thin armor, initiating an internal fire. The 3 surviving crew members of the stricken tank scramble to extract themselves from the tinderbox and promptly retreat from the bluff. For Spitzer, his desire to finish off the damaged tank gives way to his trepidation for becoming stuck in the soft ground on which they now reside. He fears that the forceful recoil of their main gun may have exacerbated their muddy predicament.
Betroffen, dass mein Stug im Sumpf gesteckt, während beschäftigt.
Concerned that my Stug might become mired while engaged in battle, I ceased fire and directed the driver to pull forward, out of the muck. Initially, it appeared as though we had good traction. Then, the vehicle pulled sharply to the left. The tracks began to slip. We were not only stuck in the mud, our vehicle profile was now facing the east bluff. A lucky shot from an enemy tank may not have disabled our machine, but it could have damaged the tracks, in which case our vehicle may as well be a useless wreck without a means to aim the cannon.
After a few hair-raising moments for Spitzer and crew, their tracks finally regain traction. The vehicle pulls itself free of the mire. They escape potential disaster no worse for wear. At this point, however, both Stugs elect to reposition themselves further afield from the sunken vale. They will utilize their respective barns as cover whilst they observe and reevaluate the developing situation. On the opposite side of the collection barn from Spitzer, the field kitchen unit, serving as ammunition bearers, rejoins their fellow stragglers. Resupplied, the last remaining mortar tube leaves cover and begins to redeploy for independent action from behind the hamlet. Unbeknownst to them, their extreme range from the bluff is no longer safe or inconsequential. Butch has been waiting for them to reappear in the crosshairs of his scope. With impassioned determination, the grief-stricken sniper patiently acquires his target. Before the enemy can even hear the report of his Springfield rifle, the artillery gunner crumples to the ground. Such lethal precision provokes irrevocable panic in the remaining stragglers. To the west, the American infantry advance is finally beginning to make headway in 3 different directions. After arriving safely at the irrigation ditch, 1st Platoon has begun an eastward transition through the trench in preparation for an eventual assault en main down the center of the Vale. Meanwhile, the bulk of 2nd Platoon continues to surreptitiously skirt the northwest crop field. Their goal is to flank the German contingent holding station on the reverse slope of Point Andy, thereby segregating them from the rest of Kampfgruppe Eckel and hindering their ability to retreat to the hamlet. Atop the bluff, the balance of 2nd Platoon finally reaches the crest of the hill and the vacant German entrenchments. Wary of sudden surprises, they advance with extreme caution. The German defenders spot the command team. It is their first indication of an American presence on the hill. Though anxious to engage their tormentors, they continue to maintain a low profile in the thick field grass at the foot of the slope. They are under orders from Lieutenant Eckel to be patient and await a more favorable opportunity to strike back.
Die Soldaten auf der Westdeutschung würden nur eine Chance bekommen, den Hügel wieder einzunehmen.
The soldiers on the west bluff would get only one chance to retake the hill. It appeared as though they would need to repel a small force of no more than about a dozen men. Unfortunately, the Americans began laying down blind grazing fire while they were still in the process of infiltrating the entrenchments. This prompted light counterfire from the base of the bluff, which only served to divulge the contingent's position. It was at this point that the final battle for the West Bluff began in earnest. This was also the last contact I would have with the hill.
Having witnessed the destructive attack on 2 of his tanks and subsequently losing sight of the offending Stug, Lieutenant Waters orders all 3 of the remaining Stuarts to roll forward beyond the crest of the hill in order to ascertain the position of the German armor. On the far left flank of Point Amos, the No. 4 tank emerges from the woods in the direct line of sight of Spitzer's semi-concealed assault gun. Normally, such a target would be easy pickings. However, the driver is spooked by the appearance of 3 more American tanks and throws the vehicle into reverse, just as the gunner releases a potentially lethal AP round. The sudden lurch radically deflects the trajectory. The shell impacts the ground directly in front of the vehicle. This mistake reveals their exact location, allowing both Waters and the No. 4 tank to respond with return fire. However, one shell sails high, while the other shell lands at the base of the retreating Stug without effect. This gives the Germans another opportunity to make good on their attack, and they do. A subsequent anti-tank round shatters the hull of tank No. 4, which begins to brew up. For the second time in as many minutes, a U.S. tank crew is forced to bail out of their burning vehicle. To the dismay of everyone in Company B, the armor duel is proving to be a one-sided affair. American armor strength has been effectively reduced by half. As for the No. 2 Stug, their new vantage point also proves fruitful. The crew finally detects the soldiers of 2nd Platoon in a slow crawl along the perimeter of the northwest crop field. The Germans let loose with yet another high-explosive shell, which impacts near the fence line, causing 3 casualties amongst the lead element. Their advance spoiled, these GIs once again find themselves in a position of utter vulnerability. With both sides now fully committed to a fateful climax, no quarter is expected, nor will it be given. In the final analysis, the lives of these embattled soldiers may not depend so much on command decision as those little things that truly influence victory or defeat. Individual valor, improvisation, and of course, luck. You're watching Tales of Virtual Combat on His Story International.